sealed under military code. Unauthorized access punishable by federal law. But laws don't apply to the dead, especially when they don't stay that way. Sergeant Roy here, recording the last voice I may ever send out in my 60s on this battered old BlackBerry. Some men write books, others write letters. But I've always been a man of voice and action. And this? This is my legacy, my confession, my testament. I thought confessing my sins to the chaplain years ago might be enough. It wasn't, so this goes on record. I've got no children, no wife. Just this chair, these meds, and a spine that's seen more wars than most men see birthdays. My L3, L4 are crushed like dry bone. I take 400 milligrams gabapentin in the morning, 5 milligrams diazepam with lunch, and 2 acetaminophen are tabs by dinner. Pain knows me like a brother. I just had my first meal of the day. Military doc, Dr. Kade, says intermittent fasting keeps my nervous system from turning to paste. He stitched me up after hell lot of missions, going as far up to South China Sea and again after Turkmenistan, which was my recent assignment until that unit happened. He knows where the ghosts live. Part of the job dies with me. I am still KIA. All I'll say is this: my pigeons are still free. 3 white, 2 black, 1 gray. I let them out every morning, and they come back when I whistle. Swear to God they know me better than the flag I served under. They're peace, and in this world that's rare. My name is Sergeant Roy Kade, retired Delta Force, American-born and blooded, once stood at 6 feet 2 inches, with hair like golden thread and a jaw that could crack cinder. Those were the days. Clean-shaven, fast hands served my country from Panama to Pakistan. Got picked up by Delta at 28, classic Delta recruitment, after serving early at the Marines. The recruitment officer just looked at me and said, "Your record is flawless." I didn't answer. The fact that he saw my knuckles was enough. We weren't paper pushers, but we were the kind of ghosts that ended wars before they started. Before I talk about Ice Lantern, let's back up a bit. After the Cold War's formal thaw, most Americans thought the threat died with the Berlin Wall. They were wrong, ignorant like the masses. While the TV cameras showed statues falling and old guards weeping, something darker began moving behind the headlines. The Soviet Union didn't just collapse. It fractured, and out of those cracks, men with fewer scruples and more interest in non-conventional sciences rose with a hunger to reclaim power. Our command got whispers, joint intel from MI6 and Mossad, that certain Russian military biolabs had been developing something that didn't fall under standard treaties. These weren't nukes or gases or even bugs, deeper, genetic, esoteric. Some were marked under code names like Prometheus and Velis. Others simply had Latin names and untranslatable warnings. We weren't meant to understand them, but eventually it had to be us. I was still in Delta during that mess, and in between 1985 and 1991, we pulled off missions that aren't even stored in digital anymore, rigid and burnable. Operation Mind Crow in northern Pakistan. We extracted a defector carrying blueprints of a Soviet-designed mind modification compound. Then Shadow Coral, South China Sea. We eliminated a rogue scientist who'd built artificial reef structures to harvest psychic signatures from marine mammals. Insane maybe as thought, but that base had no electronics, just symbols. Grave Salt, Finland. We rescued 2 NATO agents buried alive beneath a Cold War bunker whose walls had turned soft, the bodies stripped clean of organic compounds except the spine and the head. But none of those prepared us for what happened in Turkmenistan. So we go back in time to Operation Ice Lantern, October 1991. We were briefed as a hostage extraction. 5 American scientists, biochem, classified Pentagon clearance, had gone missing. Intel said rogue Soviet loyalists captured them near the fringe of the Karakum Desert, not far from what was once an ICBM launch site, now supposedly abandoned. We landed northeast of the desert by nightfall. Insertion via UH-60 Blackhawks. Silent flight path, zero chatter. When boots hit ground, the sand kicked up more than dust. It kicked up memory, primal memory of fear. The human body senses things even if they are not of this dimension, and something of that magnitude was breeding. We were to find out. Our senses flickered, compass readings scrambled, no seismic scans. We weren't spooked cause we were trained. We moved in a tight V formation, standard for low-visibility terrain. Weapons were modded M4S with holographic sights, M9S as secondary, and we had Barrett Overwatch from a dune to the northeast. Then came the wolves, nothing like I have ever seen before. Bigger than any forest dog I've ever seen, moved with synchronization but not instinct, coordination like soldiers in fur. Like someone was playing them on a chessboard, trained them to engage with military. Dagger 3 went first. Then Dagger 5, just a grunt, then static. We tried to regroup, formed a circle, fired in bursts. We dropped 2, or we thought we did. The bodies twitched and reformed posture before evaporating like mist. Before they regenerated, you heard that right. And then came the men. Or if you can call them that. Russian Jiryu gear but sloppy mismatched patches with gloves too tight, muscles and skin bulging stretching the Kevlar. Faces pale, unmoving, like masks poured from rubber molds. They just raised weapons and fired like they don't mind getting shot at. Their rifles fired shells of the same dimension, but their strength and precision was inhumane. I remember shooting one straight center mass with M16, but it didn't drop, then a hit to the head which only made it angry. We emptied mags, but I swear they didn't stop. Morales, my spotter, said, "Roy, someone has to know. You report back, we shall." Morales died mid-sentence, his throat pulled open by one of those abnormalities. I didn't run, rather I limped, ribs broken, vision tunneling. The thing that pained me was losing my fellow mates and, more importantly, abandoning a mission. I remember my knee was busted, shell hit my right shoulder, felt my breath going shallow, but I kept running. Made it back to the exfil point. What I carried back was a suit cam tape, Morales feed. 20 minutes of chaos. At minute 17:42, a voice which wasn't ours. It wasn't even Russian, but it enraged my already broken soul. And I carried something else, my blood. When they pulled me into Bethesda, the first scan showed my blood markers had shifted, not even human categorization. T-cell activity off charts, immune response flagged for 13 anomalies. Military said, classified deviation. Then came silence, or what you call solitude in a negative track. PTSD was tormenting. Until one day, a car outside the hospital. Black but no plates. Men in suits like in your movies, and they brought me to a steel room, something which I still remember bright as day. President George H. W. Bush. General Hugh Helton. One dossier labeled, Nightbook. Roy, the war we thought we won? Never ended, it just changed form. He opened the file. 1989 gene missing in Roman catacombs. One returned with symbolic carvings across the chest. 1990 SAS Georgia intercept, mobile cage, metal showed signs of organic transformation. Soldiers fused into walls. 1989 KSK Black Forest. Creature attacks, all dead in ways I cannot explain, like a bomb exploded from their inside. Shelton slid the final folder across the table. We call it P4 Protection Prevention Pursuit Preservation. The mission wasn't to fight conventional war. It was to contain anomalies, cryptids, emergent biological threats, and anything that didn't fit. Then I signed. My blood might be compromised, bones broken, brothers dead. But my duty never left me. The names of the missions I mentioned? Some of them had to be altered, their details switched, and their dates blurred, all for the sake of keeping them classified. You might think the enemy is always out there, beyond our wire, but you'd be wrong. Some of them wear our uniform, sit in think tanks, sip their coffee, and leak documents as though they believe they're doing God's work. Some of our most classified black operations now have threads on Reddit, complete with diagrams and open-source speculation. There are even dark web contracts named after code names we once buried in vaults. Fuck who's talking? That's a different kind of war, one where the real enemies are often sitting within, wearing our badges. The systems we once trusted are no longer safe. The rot, I can feel it, and it's viral, but despite that, let me tell you this. Every soldier I bled beside, whether Marine, Delta, or SS, they were patriots, each one. Nationality doesn't matter when you're outnumbered, and someone's screaming in a language you don't understand. It doesn't matter whether you're from London, Brooklyn, or Kabul. You only move if patriotism is in your blood, and if it isn't, you freeze or die. Operation Ice Lantern finally? That mission, the one they said would break the enemy, broke something in me. I didn't tell you about my comrades. Back at camp, what we called camp, anyway, I sat there nursing 3 cracked ribs, my uniform soaked in blood, with guilt around my neck like a noose. The sun was rising over the desolate, godforsaken sand, and I remember it felt wrong, like something had shifted in the very air. The wind had a strange, almost sinister stillness to it. My boots, sticky with blood. No, not just mine. My team's blood too. Dagger unit, they weren't just soldiers. They were living fortresses, hard-nosed, combat-tested ghosts. Morales, my spotter, a man born in El Paso, with hands that could crush concrete. During a convoy raid in Kandahar, he'd sniped a moving truck tire from 600 yards, never missed. Bastard had a calm about him, a way of looking through the chaos and finding the solution. Reed, the breacher, hailing from Brooklyn. His weapon of choice was his bent wrench, welded to his mall vest. He called it his lucky charm, claiming it had saved his life in Basra when a door blew up and the wrench caught all the shrapnel. No one knew if it was true, but Reed swore by it. Santos, the quiet comms and electronics specialist, a devout Catholic. He had a cross tattooed on his trigger finger, and before every breach, he would whisper a prayer, without fail. But that unlucky day, we moved into that Turkmenistan site like it was a routine exercise. Ghost steps, tight formation, and full overwatch. The minute we stepped into the Badlands, everything turned upside down. I still remember the landing, the Black Hawk shuddering violently as it dropped us onto the dry, cracked ravine floor. The terrain ahead was rough, jagged, and all wrong, like the earth itself had decided it didn't want us there. There were no sounds, not even insects buzzing, just the oppressive silence. Like I told, I was the only survivor, cannot help repeating, that cursed day, I wondered whether someone had set us up. But with that P4 unit, things had finally made sense. I would have had my hands full of blood again. Pain teaches posture. When I was summoned again the second time in short notice, I stood straight, despite the bruised ribs and torn knee, despite the wheezing of my lungs that rattled like a rusted valve. The kind of pain that settles into your bones and makes you feel every step. But when the President of the United States and the Joint Chiefs walk into a room, you stand, no matter how bad it hurts, you stand straight. We were below ground, real deep concrete walls, black ceilings, and the weight of secrecy pressing down on you. I stood there, saluted. I didn't want them to see it, didn't want to show weakness. President Bush nodded once, a solemn motion, as if acknowledging the gravity of what had just happened. Behind him, General stood tall and composed, his face unreadable, but his eyes piercing through me like he was reading my entire history in the span of a heartbeat. 2 aides stood in the corner, silent, unblinking, observing but saying nothing. Sergeant Kade, the President said, his voice quiet but ironclad, the weight of it sinking into the air like lead. I read the transcript. You were dead for 14 minutes. That's still on paper. General Shelton stepped in, his voice calm, but his words cut through the room. He handed me a black binder, the weight of it heavier than anything I had ever held. The kind of weight that comes with being given a piece of the future, one you'd never asked for. You read the P4 file, now welcome to the other war, Shelton said, his words final. Inside the binder were files, photos, dossiers, surveillance logs. A timeline of hell that I had no idea was unfolding across the world, one piece at a time. Across NATO, from France to Germany, from the UK to Poland, and even Norway, elite units were being lost, but not in ways that made sense. These weren't failures, these weren't just losses of men, these were well-trained, highly capable forces that were being eradicated by something unseen, something far beyond the usual adversaries. The files showed a pattern. The general spoke again. They're coordinating and evolving, he said. Not the creatures but the people behind them, the Russos, cartel-funded biolabs, rogue Balkan networks. And, more troubling still, private defense contractors with no allegiances. We've been tracking subtle communications between them all, anomalous keyword spikes, encrypted channels, irregular cargo shipments into closed zones. Whatever this is, it's bigger than we thought. He flipped to another set of files, the personnel candidates. Faces, profiles, skills. Traumas. Captain Andrei Lasko, Polish SF, known for deep recon in contaminated zones. Lost half his unit during a mission in Pripyat. Returned with only his knife. Lieutenant Fiona Kurv, Norwegian ETAC. Cold weather warfare, survived a failed Arctic blackout operation. Warrant Officer Caleb Dunn, Canadian JTF-2. Demolitions and advanced ordnance. Left after an operation where mutated livestock were found in a Siberian village. Dr. Hideo Matsura, biochemist. Japanese national, worked with Unit 731 files during declassification, not a field agent, but essential for Deccan and pathogen classification. Major Hasan Degani, Turkish parapsychology advisor, former intelligence psychological profiler. Infiltrated a doomsday cult and watched its members collapse after exposure to a noise-based frequency weapon. Sergeant Arlo Beck, U.S. Marine Raider, took out a creature in Venezuela described as part man, part fungus. His whole squad was compromised. He burned the jungle to the ground. Each one had a history. Each one was broken but functional. The president leaned in, his eyes locking with mine. This isn't about winning battles, Sergeant. It's about surviving what's next. We can't report this to the public. Hell, most of our own departments wouldn't understand it. You've seen it, survived it. That makes you the first or the spearhead. And then, I knew then it wasn't a recruitment. This was a containment directive. General Shelton stood, the finality of his movement commanding my attention. You'll lead them, your record spotless, until now, you were dead, which makes you the perfect ghost to build something no one will ever see. The binder closed with a soft click and the black seal stared back at me. Project P4, Protection, Prevention, Pursuit, Preservation, was functional. The war hadn't ended, but it just found new teeth and I was going back into the dark to screw them all. I forgot to mention Wade. The classified folders, the voice on the tape, the Tremaines of Ice Lantern, they weren't the only things that came back. Wade was one of ours. Captain Garrison Wade, U.S. Army, Arctic Recon Unit, 2nd Rotation, 1990. Clean record, hometown, Bozeman, Montana, wife and a son. He'd write letters home, talked more about his son's first baseball glove than any damn mission. Solid man, always took point, led his team into a mission that was supposed to be nothing more than a routine Arctic anomaly check near the Laptev coast. It wasn't routine. They found a Russian research outpost buried under 30 feet of ice. Non-flagged, no documents, but powered, something had kept the place alive. Inside, the heat was tropical. Vines, moss, mushrooms growing from lab walls. Spores in the air, visible under blue light, suspended like dust in zero-G. 2 days later, the team's body cams started glitching. Footage showed erratic movement, distorted voices. The final transmission, Wade's suit cam, showed him breathing heavily, dragging something through the snow. Then, he turned into something which we had named it till then, an anomaly or a beast. With skin pale and stretched over a jawline too wide, this was some kind of exposure to ancient pathogen. His blood work, once we retrieved it from base logs, showed immune markers had vanished, replaced by unknown antigens, but not the kin of blood work I showed. We had differences, or so I thought back then. His DNA was mutating. Not like a virus, like a rewrite from man to something else. His last location was flagged then wiped from NATO systems and the official line. Wade Kia, body unrecovered, same military protocol. Let me take you back to Unit P4 headquarters. That was when I got flown in, midnight chopper, no markings, we touched down somewhere in the Nevada quadrant, coordinates redacted even from me. The place was called Camp Theta, though everyone knew that name was fabricated. From the air, it looked like a solar farm. Rows of black panels, but beneath it a different world. We took the elevator down 5 stories below desert rock, concrete walls reinforced with steel mesh. Hallways lit in pale blue. P4 Base Command. Like I said, the president himself had authorized it. I had a desk, never used it, operated out of the war room, command screen in front of me, encrypted terminals behind. We had a support team, no more than 7, small and effective, top tech tiers of that time. Dr. Emil Urek, biogenetics and pathology, ran every test twice, didn't blink during autopsies. Samuel Kwan, linguistic decoding and ancient scripts, used to work for the Vatican's archive. Ellen Marks, forensic structural analyst, she could tell you how something died based on the direction the blood hit a wall. Lieutenant Anika Ross, signal interception, her gear picked up encrypted chatter from under oceans. Dr. Kofi Bale, specialized in neurological trauma, tracked changes in behavior with one look. And I was to lead P4 not from behind a desk, but in the field, hands in the dirt, eyes on the dark. Our first directive? Track Wade but not to kill. To understand if what was inside him could be controlled, studied, reused for our kind of war, we needed him dead or alive for the sake of P4. That was P4's first true mission. Find Wade, contain him or kill him if we must. I was given command of Camp Theta. By the time I stepped into full control of Camp Theta, it wasn't a handover, it was a sealed signature, marked by the president himself. A thick envelope delivered under double chain of custody. Inside, a letter in bold serif ink. You've seen the shape of what's coming, now you command the hands that stop it. Signed by Commander-in-Chief. So there I stood, spine barely holding, body carved by war, like it always was during Black Ops. Rosary still intact and firm, I wore the tin Fallujah in Kosovo, and again during the long crawl through the Karaka mountain ranges, I kept it on now, but not for faith, for memory. Memory of the men who didn't crawl out beside me. I was now the undisputed commanding officer of P4, and Camp Theta was mine to shape. Presidential clearance meant no bureaucratic red tape, no committees, no external oversight. This place was autonomous. I started with the files, thick, black-bound, cold-papered kind. They weren't alphabetized, weren't stored, they were hidden, buried in outdated server racks, in manila envelopes scorched at the edges, and in microfilm reels stored beneath lead shielding. Some reports were written in old ink, the kind of glassy ink we had in 90s, others weren't written at all, just sketched, hand-drawn horrors etched by surviving eyes. Global anomalies. It's hard for me to remember entire details of dozens of files that I studied and prepared, but here are a few mentions. 1986, Papua New Guinea, entire village gone. U.S. medical NGO reported unidentified primate vocalizations. 2 nights prior, recovery team found massive indentations in the earth and one child buried alive with eyes that had turned mirror black. 1990 Argentina, remote Andes station lost contact. Black fungus covering electronics, final radio chatter mentioned, the mountain walked. 1979, Mongolia, Soviet patrols disappear near Lake Kovskal, NATO recon footage, later intercepted, shows an 8-foot quadruped leaping from treetop to treetop, footage never released. 1992, Japan, civilian photos show an oily humanoid crawling through a Shinto shrine, trailing 6 limbs. Authorities declared it staged, but a JSDF internal memo marked the shrine permanently off-limits. 1983, Appalachian Mountains, USA, group of hikers found frozen in mid-step, no weather anomalies, blood crystallized inside the veins, case redacted within 48 hours. Each folder was a scream through paper, each one said one thing that we are not yet prepared. Camp Theta wasn't just a bunker, it was a nerve center, 5 stories beneath a sunless piece of U.S. desert. Our ventilation systems could filter spores the size of radio waves. Our walls were steel core and carbon reinforced. No cell signals, no hard lines to Washington. We reported directly through encoded pulse packets relayed via classified satellite. And the team? The ghosts I was assigned? They weren't normal and they weren't supposed to be. My commands were simple. This isn't your typical unit. We do not act unless necessary. We do not talk outside Theta. We eliminate when the threat is viable, we contain if there's even a sliver of knowledge to gain. Is that understood? Each answered in their native tongue, affirmative, direct, sharp. I studied their files, studied the patterns, then came Wade's file again, the only one I didn't file away. I read every Arctic report twice, pathogens that weren't just viral, they were intelligent, designed by something old, spore clouds that sensed human lung chemistry, shifted midair to adapt. Wade was the worst case. His neural activity spiked beyond measurable EEG charts, strength nearly doubled, muscle composition showed organometallic fusion, but he didn't lose control immediately. What he became was not a soldier, but a weapon, a living weapon that can handle the apex of predators with ease. And that's when the first mission was set, to locate Wade, understand his condition, contain if possible, terminate if necessary. Wade may be our only hope in building future assets, or our greatest failure, and as I stared at his photo, what struck me most wasn't the claws. It was the eyes, still human, but just barely. I whispered into my rosary and then I began planning the retrieval operation. Before I start this next part, let me pour something strong. Neat, bitter, and older than most of the men I've buried. I hold the glass in my calloused hands, the same hands that once gripped an M4 through blizzards in Bosnia, through dust in Kabul, and through nightmares in Turkmenistan. Even now, those reflexes haven't dulled. I can feel the ghost of steel through my bones every time I curl my fingers. This part gets darker. Darker when I had full command of Camp Theta, granted by presidential orders and with autonomy that frightened even the spooks in Langley. My job wasn't to lead a unit. My job was to lead something unnameable, something America wasn't ready to believe existed. We weren't just tracking Wade anymore, but we were training to hunt gods and beasts. The barracks shook as the forge opened for the morning. Our weapons weren't off the shelf. We didn't deal in 5.56 or 9 millimeters unless it had an asterisk and a warning label. MIT STARPA Black Cell had sent us prototypes still wrapped in foam and redacted memos. Primary tools: XM250 LMGs, belt-fed monsters, modded with AP sabos, rigged to tear through ceramic, flesh, or bone. M79 thumpers, modified for dual payload, thermobaric to break caverns, concussive to drop cryptids. M4S reflex optics, ACOGs, microdetonator rounds. Nothing ornamental. Knuckles forged titanium, barbed edges. K-bar blades, high carbon, acid-etched for arterial flow. Containment tools: tranquilizer carbines, loaded with rhino-grade sedatives, 60 cubic centimeters per round. Tungsten mesh chains, triple-wrapped. Hydraulic clamps pressure-triggered. Each soldier was trained by me. I knew their pulse, their flaws, and the kind of monsters that would break them. I didn't talk much, but I trained harder. Every man and woman was told one thing: don't get attached, anyone can go dark, even me, so you know what had to be done. I pushed them on endurance, biology, anomaly theory. By week's end, most could ID spores by texture and tell you the weaknesses of 8 different cryptid classes. But beyond training and weapons, there was the zoo, the unholy zoo. Annex R13, classified internally as the zoo. A sector buried below Camp Theta, 2 sublevels deeper than the war rooms, accessed only by retinal scan, and only after I said yes. Inside the zoo were the kind of things that you can't shoot your way out of. Subject Alpha 02, a boy, maybe 11, doesn't speak much, sometimes sings lullabies from the 1700s. We first logged his condition as lunar reactive lycanthropy. When the moon rises, his bones shift. It's not painful, it's natural. He changes and he hunts, he's caged, but he watches us like prey, and someday maybe we shall include lunar for the bad job. Subject Row 9 Corporal Travis Keene died in Afghanistan. 2 months later, he woke up in a morgue in Berlin. His nervous system is half active, no pulse, no language, just like Frankenstein of the books. Object Delta Petra, a relic recovered near Jordan, emits frequencies that scramble cognition. 4 translators suffered seizures, 1 developed a second heartbeat. It's sealed behind 8 inches of leaded glass. Kyra works on it daily. I told her not to stare too long. Dr. Kyra, forensics. Dr. Thomasai, bioreactive pathogens. Suresh, cryptography and dead languages. And Leung, engineering. They're the brains behind the bullets. Not soldiers, but soldiers in their own right, and they trust me. I respect them, but I don't tell them everything. Secrecy is important. Disobedience of mandate meant capital punishment. Wade was all over intel, super soldier, wolf soldier, rogue soldier were the names they used. Even bounties hunters took the job to search Wade, but none of them returned. And you know what? The CIA didn't stop chasing Wade, neither did DARPA, nor the Canadians. Intel came in through black satellites, private contractors, and intercepted Soviet transmissions. Calder Nash, our in-house systems expert, kept pinging old geosync satellites to triangulate anomalies in Arctic magnetic fields. Patterns emerged, fucking bodies torn apart in a Greenland outpost, mining crew vanishing in Novaya Zemlya, biosignatures that didn't fit human or animal profiles. We were ready for the mission. Morning broke cold across the dust-flattened hills, sun low, wind bitter. I woke early out of instinct but not alarm. Rolled from my cot like the soldier I once was, still am. Years do something strange to a man's body. You don't lose strength, you lose forgiveness. A muscle tears easier, the lungs need coaxing. I did my stretches, 3 rounds of push-ups, static holds, some shadowboxing and military drills, and injected liquid Q-alpha designed by MIT to boost adrenaline and reflex, the kind of stuff that never goes in the market. The pain comes with the fluid. Most men will piss their pants, as it hardens the cells, further amplifying the signals of pain receptors. But I train for pain, and it's the only way to outlast the ghosts. A light breakfast, boiled oats, salt, 2 eggs, black coffee. Nothing fancy, but just the fuel to get me into the day. After that, I sat cross-legged in the chapel annex, rosary in hand. I don't pray to be saved. I pray that if today's the day I die well. Head high but orders intact. Back at the motor shed, I called the briefing. Our P4 team assembled sharp, tacticians, linguists, weapon handlers. Each man and woman had a specialty, but none carried ego. I nodded, set the tablet down on the steel table, and kept it direct. Target is Lieutenant Garrison Wade, former soldier. Not a kill order unless containment fails. No noise, no panic, no hero work. We do this smart. We do this clean. I scanned the room. Got any questions? They answered with head nods, some with tight words in their native tongues, all negative, all locked in. Good, now gear up, I ordered. The mission plan was mine alone. Didn't trust command to write it. I knew Wade better than any pencil pusher. I'd built the damn file myself. Phase 1 recon sweep. We launched a 2-tier recon and retrieval protocol. Drone and LiDAR systems engaged, target profile loaded, drones equipped with burst modules, non-lethal impact rounds, rubberized sabos. If visual confirmed, drone has shoot clearance. Tranquilizer carbines, custom modified for deep puncture impact. Payload, 60 cubic centimeters subdermal fast absorption Rhino-class tranquilizer, for hits minimum required to subdue. Containment gear, triple-wrapped tungsten mesh chains, hydraulic snap clamps, sedative launchers with compressed vials strapped to auto-inject, all field-tested, all irreversible once locked. Phase 2 live retrieval loadout. Primary arms, XM250 LMGs loaded with AP sabos, armor-piercing, zero-flare, M79S modded with dual payload launchers, thermobaric and concussion, M4S with reflex optics, underbarrel microdetonator rounds. Tactical armor, custom Kevlar, top-tier weave, ceramic plate reinforcement across thorax, shoulders, back, helmets, full face sealed, embedded HUD, thermal cams, audio nullifiers. Gloves reinforced with carbon titanium alloy knuckles. K-bar blades, acid-etched, deep groove trench cutters. Contingency fire units, flamethrowers prepped, dual tanks, napalm thick, high temp, triggered if standard methods fail. The final part was silence, that moment before you lift off. Every soldier knows it, feels like time exhales. We boarded the chopper at 0700 hours. Steel belly rumbled under our boots. Our squad, 9 of us including assistants, sat tight, each man scanning kit, eyes unfocused but alert, the only noise being the deep thrum of rotors slicing cold desert air. Except for one voice, Vladek, Polish ex-intelligence, sat across from me, eyes locked into the wall like it was going to talk back. He leaned forward, face half-lit by the red cabin bulb, and said, "We faced something back in the Alps, looked like a demon, didn't move right. We cleared a NATO forward cave site, thought it was a rogue bio-op." He talked low, like it still hurt to remember. We dropped in to intercept a suspected terror cell hiding in an old limestone cave. What we found was something else. Men and women, maybe 20 of them, sitting in a circle around 3 women, naked, unconscious, arranged like a sacrifice. Our comms clicked out, and the light from our NVGs went distorted. One of us fired a blank into the air, panic broke, and people ran. Then we saw his thing, which still haunts my dreams, he said in his broken Slavic English. 2 weeks after returning home, the youngest in our team, Jensen, started getting sick. Lost his appetite, then he vanished. Cops found his house filled with rotting meat and a smell they couldn't place. He'd killed his wife and eaten part of her. They took him to Secure Psych, Vatican dispatched exorcists. Nothing worked. He's still there. He doesn't speak anymore, but he stares like something inside him is still watching. Another soldier, Diaz, crossed himself silently. No one else said anything at his demon tail. All seemed silent. I didn't speak, just thumbed Wade's file open again, eyes locked on his medical scans, blood work, thermal anomalies. Demon talk didn't faze me. We weren't going to fight myths. We were going to catch something real. By 11:40 hours, we'd cleared the last elevation ridge and hit visual contact with the Yakin River line. I'd studied satellite passes of the region for weeks, but nothing replaced the real thing. It cut through the tundra like a scar, dark water pushing slow, banks lined with thin pine and cracked earth. I stood, flexed the stiffness from my spine, and watched through the port window. Down below, red dust, broken cliff lines, the yawning stretch of the Yakin tundra. Somewhere out there, Wade waited or something wearing his name. I commanded the pilot. Put us down. Angel followed quietly after us. When you're in chase of a hunt of this magnitude, your brain sends you signals that danger is approaching, like an inbuilt primal instinct, and mine was still glued to Wade's file, infrared maps, classified health records, and sketches drawn from survivor testimony. Muscles along the jaw were described as asymmetric hyperplasia. Scapula extended wider than any natural form should. We began our approach. Hours passed in tactical crawl, formation tight, visual contact maintained with hand signals. The land ate sound. Everything we stepped on seemed to absorb our pressure, not even a crunch under boots. Then we saw first signs: torn tactical gear, blood-darkened fatigues, fragments of Kevlar tangled in brush like chewed rags. Someone had dragged bodies, deep trails in the earth, dry blood dragged in straight, and whatever dragged them had monstrous pressure behind it. If I am too gory with the details, I beg pardon, but that was real. Closer, we found what was left of a NATO recon team. 4 men, disemboweled, limbs arranged almost methodically, intestines curled like cords. Their M4s lay beside them, undisturbed, magazines full. 20 minutes later, just past a creek choked with animal bones, we saw Wade, knelt low beside a bear's corpse, or what looked like remains of a bear, face soaked, mouth still moving. There were 3 other bodies around him, throats shredded, ribs cracked. He turned his head, didn't move, just a sniff. Eyes locked from 100 yards and the silence split open. He charged with a bolt, a blur across rock and slope, bounded between boulders like a predator that knew terrain better than breath. Our weapons specialist, Mendoza, had the tranquilizer locked. Do it now. The first 2 rounds hit square, chest and right thigh. Wade stumbled, but didn't fall. Fire again. 2 more hits, then came fire. From the west ridge, Thompson's flamethrower unit ignited. Roar of pressurized napalm screamed through the forest cut. Wade recoiled, like a reflex buried deep in whatever genetic overhaul he'd suffered. Skin crackled where fire hit. Blisters, immediate boils. The pathogen couldn't handle high temperatures. Fire again, 2 more tranquilizer shots, and our target was done. He dropped to one knee, burned, broken, convulsing, but still trying to stand, still moving. I charged forward with Team Bravo, fired the final dose, 90 cubic centimeters straight to the neck. Mix had ketamine, xylazine, and another agent classified beyond FDA regs, enough to down an elephant. He finally collapsed. Chains clamped, tungsten mesh woven across his limbs, hydraulic snap cuffs locked into place. Our med specialist Hart, Kept an eye on vitals, he was alive, just barely. But then the burns faded, cell by cell, he was regenerating. What the fuck is this thing? Mendoza whispered. He's ours now, I said. Get him loaded. We moved him under burn blankets, packed sedative vials along his spine, monitored pulse via portable EKG. Chopper extraction was fast, no updates to base. We landed back at Camp Theta just after 2200 hours. There was no applause, just white lights, heavy restraints, reinforced observation cell built beneath Annex 3. Wade lay still, 6'5", bald, skin mottled like solid granite, burn scars still glowing faintly under dermal layers, fangs in place of canines, claws where fingers should have ended. They wheeled him out into the internal elevator platform that led 5 levels below the sand, into the heart of Theta's secure biocontainment wing. It was level 5. Then came our protocols. First, the decontamination corridor. We stripped down, disposed of field suits, stepped through pressurized airlocks, chemical mist saturating the room in low bursts. The burn on your eyes felt worse than the heat. System whined once, turned green. Next showers, 10 minutes, frigid, functional, no towels handed out. We kept moving. I made it back to my quarters, dropped the weapon loadout on the bench, removed the sidearm, placed it muzzle down, in the tray just as I'd done since '93. Stared in the mirror, face cracked, like old leather spine aching. I walked to the briefing lounge. The rest of the unit was already there, silent, drinking water, some filling out internal after-action writings on the analog paper forms. But no digital logs. Wade was secured. The medical bay had stabilized his vitals, heart rate 24 BPM. Temperature stable, skin density measured beyond level 4 ceramic stress thresholds. He was healing. I glanced at the internal monitor before I sat. I returned to my quarters, sat at the secure console. Secure Pentagon line, authorization code 13 RA7. Typed in my code, biometric pad flickered, terminal opened with a warning, eyes only, do not distribute. A new report came through from an undisclosed base in Eastern Europe timestamped 48 hours prior. The images hit hard, like fucking flashback of painful memories. First frame, U.S. soldiers inside a fortified outpost, base perimeter active, weapons loaded. Second frame, movement outside the fence, blurry thermal signatures, dozens. Third, men and beasts, advancing together. Some wore mismatched Russian GRU gear, others nothing but scars, and among them wolves. Final frame, a soldier being dragged out by his throat, the attacker's face in full view. Human with a wolf's mouth, looking straight at the camera. I leaned back, same goddamn bastards. From my failed mission in 1991, from the bloodbath in the mountains, from the shadows that took my team, that spared only me, and now they were back. Same behavior, same precision, only this time, bolder. They'd entered a facility, dragged men like cattle, and made sure the cameras caught it. This was a declaration, no more hiding, no more shadows. I didn't call the Joint Chiefs, didn't file a report. I stared at the feed, punched in the encryption key, backtrace initiated. IP leads bounced from servers across Minsk, Novosibirsk, Gansu, and finally Kyrgyzstan. The origin was unknown, but the signal was strong. It meant someone wanted me to see it. Wade was healing in containment. Lunar Kid downstairs was exhibiting lunar mutilation. And down with my fists wrapped in vengeance, I promised myself, they'll pay, blood for blood, brother for brother. If you've loved today's classified files, don't forget to hit subscribe. Your support is what keeps these hidden truths coming. Stay vigilant, stay curious, because what we uncover here might just change the way you see the world. Let's keep peeling back the layers. Thank you for being part of this journey.